Imagine walking through the grand avenues of ancient Rome in the year 67 AD, white marble gleaming under the sun, voices echoing from towering colonnades, and the scent of incense wafting from distant temples. The streets bustle with citizens from every corner of the empire, soldiers, merchants, senators, and slaves. Suddenly the chatter fades, heads turn, the crowd parts. Emperor Nero has arrived. His presence is electric, adorned in regal robes, stitched with gold and escorted by his usual entourage. But beside him walks someone who draws even more stares. A radiant figure, cloaked in silks, dripping in jewels, gliding with grace and elegance. Many assume she must be Nero's new empress. But beneath the fine fabrics and carefully painted face, whispers swirl. The truth is far more complex. This figure, known as Sporus, was born not a woman, but a boy. This is no ordinary tale from the decadent heart of Rome. It is a chilling narrative of obsession and power, of grief so deep it drove an emperor to bend the very identities of others to his will. It is the story of how a single person, caught in the vortex of empire, was transformed from a boy into the ghost of a lost queen. To fully understand Sporus's fate, we must begin with the emperor who reshaped it. Nero was not always the tyrant history remembers. In his youth, he was seen as a beacon of hope. Ascending to power at the tender age of 16, he introduced reforms, lowered taxes, and even patronized the arts. He was an emperor who wrote poetry, acted on stage, and dreamt of a Rome adorned with beauty and enlightenment. But as the years passed, the weight of limitless authority began to unravel his soul. Central to Nero's spiral was a woman named Poppaea Sabina. Described by ancient historians as beautiful, clever, and fiercely ambitious, she quickly became the axis around which Nero's world turned. His marriage to Octavia, the daughter of the revered Emperor Claudius, was one of duty, not passion. Octavia was noble but reserved, a shadow compared to the luminous Poppaea. With Poppaea, Nero found not just love, but obsession. Their affair scandalized Rome, culminating in Nero's divorce from Octavia and Poppaea's ascension to the imperial throne. Their union was extravagant. Nero spared no expense in expressing his devotion. Gifts from across the empire, perfumes from Arabia, silks from the East, rare gems poured into Poppaea's hands. Her image adorned statues, coins, and frescoes, but the emperor's affection was suffocating. He surveilled her constantly, jealous and paranoid, unable to accept any threat to his dominion over her heart. Yet, Poppaea was not one to be controlled. Intelligent and self-assured, she challenged Nero in ways no one else dared. Their arguments grew in frequency and intensity. One tragic night in 65 AD, during a particularly volatile exchange, Nero, in a fit of rage, struck his pregnant wife. She succumbed to her injuries shortly after, and with her died their unborn child. Rome wept. But Nero did more than mourn. He unraveled. He refused the traditional cremation rites, preserving Poppaea's body in the style of Egyptian royalty. A grand mausoleum was built. He declared her divine, commanding the imperial court to treat her as if she were still present. Her seat remained empty at banquets. Her name was whispered with reverence. Nero's grief was not merely sorrow, it was delusion. And in this madness, Sporus entered the stage. Sporus was a young palace slave, perhaps only in his early teens, later freed but still tied irrevocably to the imperial household. He was well educated and groomed for administrative tasks. But it wasn't his intellect that caught Nero's attention. It was his face. Multiple ancient sources describe Sporus as bearing an eerie resemblance to the late Poppaea, particularly in his eyes and delicate bone structure. In Nero's fractured psyche, that resemblance was a spark of resurrection. The emperor seized upon it. Sporus was taken from his position and drawn into an elaborate and terrifying plan. Nero ordered physicians to alter his body to make him more closely match the woman he had lost. This was not medicine. It was mutilation disguised as transformation. The procedures were brutal, dangerous, and irreversible. No choice was given, no consent sought. Once Sporus recovered, the transformation continued. He was dressed in silks tailored to mask his original form, adorned in Poppaea's jewels, and taught how to walk, speak, and behave as a Roman noblewoman. Hairdressers shaped his curls into styles fit for the empress. Voice tutors adjusted his speech. Etiquette masters taught him every motion, from how to pour wine to how to sit in courtly grace. And then, the final act, the wedding. In a ceremony held with imperial fanfare, Nero married Sporus. Rome's elite gathered, cloaked in their finest togas, offering gifts and toasts, all while knowing the truth behind the charade. Sporus, renamed Sabina, became the official consort of the emperor. He joined Nero at public events, sat beside him at banquets, and endured the gaze of the entire empire. This was not affection. It was theater, and Sporus was both actor and prisoner. His life from that day forward was a performance. Every moment calculated, every reaction monitored. When Nero recalled memories of Poppaea, Sporus was expected to respond as if he shared them. Mistakes were not forgiven. Fear was ever present. Even as the empire faltered, the performance continued. When Nero embarked on a tour of Greece, indulging his fantasies of artistic greatness, Sporus followed. In foreign courts, he was presented as the empress of Rome. But the illusion could not protect Nero forever. By 68 AD, Rome had had enough. Rebellions surged. The Senate condemned Nero. The Praetorian Guard abandoned him. Nero fled with a few loyal companions, Sporus among them. In exile, as Nero prepared for suicide, Sporus stayed close. When the emperor finally ended his life, Sporus was left alone in a world that remembered him not as himself, but as a remnant of Nero's madness. After Nero, Sporus became a symbol, a living relic of imperial excess. He was passed from patron to patron, forced to continue his performance, used and paraded as a curiosity. The worst came under Emperor Vitellius, who planned to use Sporus in a public spectacle, reenacting scenes of myth and humiliation in the arena. Faced with the final indignity, Sporus made his only autonomous decision. He ended his life, likely by poison, refusing to become a spectacle once more. He was no older than 20. Sporus's story is rarely told in full. Ancient sources treated him as a footnote, a symbol of Nero's descent. But beneath the surface lies a human story, one of identity, survival, and the quiet resistance of a boy who refused to be erased entirely. In death, Sporus reclaimed what life denied him, the power to choose. His story is not merely about Rome or Nero. It is a reflection on how power can distort love, how control can mask cruelty, and how, even in the face of overwhelming force, a person can hold on to the final thread of their selfhood. Let us not forget Sporus, not as an empress, not as a symbol, but as a young man whose life was rewritten by another's grief, yet who, in the end, reminded the world that even in silence, even in shadows, the will to be remembered can still burn bright.